Welcome to the All Access Podcast from the experts at Tevis. Each episode, we'll talk about technology topics, trends, or solutions that manufacturers need to know in today's rapidly evolving times. Sit back, enjoy the discussion, and let us know what you think.
Hey, welcome, friends. Welcome to the All Access Podcast. I am your host, Michael Thiessen, and I want to welcome you to another great episode that we have for you. As you know, we're always trying to bring you guests and topics that mean something to you. And so I'm extremely excited to have this particular person on the show. Welcome, Christina Fuges. And she has been essentially the face for MoldMaking Magazine. She has been for the last, what is it now, Christina? Was it 25 years or 28 years at MoldMaking Technology?
I've been in trade publishing for around 28, 29 years, but the magazine is celebrating its 25th year this year.
Excellent. So first and foremost, welcome, Christina.
Thank you. What a very nice intro. No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all. No pressure at all. But you know what? Wherever I go and wherever I show up, if it is AMBA, if it is PMA, if it is a lot of different conventions at PTXPO, whatever that is, your face shows up and your name shows up almost anywhere that deals with mold making.
Well, I love to hear that because that's the point, right? I mean, when we started this magazine, mold making was covered in a variety of other trade publications, but it wasn't the center of it. So the founder, Joe Prishak, God rest his soul, he was the past CEO of the Plastic Group. It was always his idea to start a magazine just for that critical niche of manufacturing. So we gave them a voice. So it's wonderful, and it's a small niche community in regards to compared to overall manufacturing. So to hear that you think that or you feel like I'm everywhere for the brand, I just think that's wonderful. That I'm doing my job because I want to represent and serve those people.
Well, when I work here on my computer and I do all my sales stuff and all the other things that are going on my little notification that comes up, all your MMT chats and the videos show up. And it's interesting to see of all the different individuals from our mold making environment are showing up on your show. And I'm really excited that we could actually turn the tables on you this time. So this time you're in our podcast and not the other way around. But it is awesome to see that you are such a contributor to the mold making industry, such a voice and an influencer when it comes to mold making. So congratulations to all of your success and from what you have been doing for the mold making industry.
And it's not just me. There is a team surrounding me. But I am the only person that's been with the brand since the beginning. But there is so many people around me at Gardner Business Media that help the brand.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Now, you already said, and I'm going to go into this a little bit later on again, 25-year anniversary for the mold making MMT for the magazine. And then you've been for 28 years in trade publishing.
Yes. Yep.
So you have pretty much, was it always in the mold making industry or different industries?
Different industries. So I actually went to school for telecommunications and marketing. So I really wanted to be behind the camera, behind the scenes, developing content. So I kind of fell into editorial. My first job was with a quilting a local trade show, a company that focused on quilting. So I helped them with their newsletter, helped them with their local trade shows. From there, I went to the critical cleaning industry, a company called Witter Publishing, not too far from me, and was, kind of learned the ropes of trade media really on that technical trade magazine. Long story short, the silent partner of that publishing company, who I did not know till years and years later, was Joe Prishak. So when I left that publishing company and moved on, my phone rang years later, and he was starting this. He wanted to start a company, actually, and MoldMaking was going to be one of those magazines. So I was invited to join his crusade. So I fell into trade media and have touched. Actually, you know what's interesting? My first written article in the critical cleaning industry was cleaning molds. Do you believe that? I think that's crazy.
That is awesome. And it almost gave you a platform right away to go into your next adventure, which is then
There you go.
in the mold making industry.
Yes.
So what drew you to the mold making industry, if I can say it that way?
I don't. Well, I will tell you, when I sat down with Joe and my partner at the time, Gary Orff, who also has passed away, I didn't know anything about a mold. I didn't even know what a mold was. So that initial year and a half was spending a lot of time at the Plastic Group, who has they have Triangle Tool, they have Penn Erie Tool. I was on the road a lot, visiting suppliers to the industry and in shops, learning the ropes and learning all about it. And I wish I kept it. I had a notebook full of questions right from the beginning as everybody's talking, like, what is this? So it wasn't until I started meeting people, though, face to face, it wasn't hard to fall in love with the people of the community. Quite honestly, I'm based in the Philadelphia side of Pennsylvania. But me and my husband always say this, I believe I was born, we're living on the wrong side of the country, because who we are, I'm just more akin to the people that make up the industry generally. And they're all in the Midwest. So I think that's why I fell in love with the industry, the people and how they do things.
And you say that's so incredible. The people are the backbone of the industry, and the mold builders. And I just saw this at the NBA conference in Grand Rapids. They are passionate of what they're doing. And they want to drive the next level of industry. They want to be the innovators. They always look for that new caveat of doing things, and always, and even from the side segment that we did with our partners, we saw there was genuine interest. And it's so exciting to see that. And I don't know about other industry. I don't know about the quilting industry and all the other areas that you were in, but the mold makers are incredibly passionate, and they're incredibly proud in what they have accomplished and what they're doing.
Yes. And you know why I think too? It is tough. I mean, the longest we've been doing this, people are always asking, the business conditions, what's the environment like? And to be honest, I feel like it's always the same for them. It's just the ups and downs of manufacturing, and mold making gets that. They're pretty much a leading indicator, right? If there's molds and they're making a lot of molds, we know what's coming down the pike. But it's just a tough industry, especially certain end markets are really tough on them. So I think that gives them that character, and it's almost like if you don't have that passion, you're not going to make it.
Yeah. And you probably, all these changes, these moving gears that all these mold makers have run into, it must be incredibly difficult for them, because they have to adjust on the fly. And you probably at MMT have seen this entire mold industry shift from left to right, and where they had to adjust, and they're running into these situations. Tell me a little bit, what have you seen on the mold industry?
Evolved?
How did they evolved?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite the exercise going back over 25 years. So it's a timely question. In a nutshell, I would say mold making used to be we called it mold making. Now I want to get more familiar with saying mold manufacturing, because it's not really an individual process anymore. It's like it's process driven. It's not just one guy in a shop driving the information through the shop and, going to the different machines. There's so many departments involved, and their involvement with the customer. So it's more process driven. On top of that, most of my conversations revolve around, you're not really designing a mold nowadays. It's changed from that to engineering a mold. I mean, the software and all that technology involved in that upfront, whether it's simulation, whether it's CAD CAM, whether it's AI, whatever it is, it's all upfront. So engineer, which impacts the entire process, right? And then the end product for their customers. So that's been the biggest change, is watching it go from an individual process to being process driven. But there are so many aspects that have stayed the same, and yet many that have changed. Yes.
I mean, if we're just go back 25 years, if we're looking at small mold shops, and I've been in those mold shops when they start up, and usually in the back of a pole barn or a garage, where they start off with one machine, and sometimes it's just grueling work of how it was done because there was no software really that was that capable to drive these types of machines. It was a lot of late nights, a lot of handwork. If I compare that now, 25 years later, only 25 years, seeing how much technology we have now and robots that load and unload machines, the type of digital aspect that you can visualize, simulate everything inside your computer. And that's just 25 years ago. Imagine 25 years from now. Hopefully by that time I'll be retired. But 25 years from now, what that will look like if in those last 25 years we've done such a leap in technology.
And when technology, right? I forget what that's called. What is that called? That theory that it's just going to be faster. When technology just advances faster, right? So yeah, we're going to be blown away. I mean, even think about, not that I want to really bring this up, but ChatGPT. I learned about that. I learned about that in December. The first week of December. I can't believe how much better that's gotten. You're talking months. So if that's an example of how far, if there's money to be made, how far or how fast something can develop, that's scary. It's exciting and scary at the same time.
I was just going to say that, exciting and scary.
Yes.
This ChatGPT is one of my clients contacted me and he says, "Hey, Michael, have you seen this ChatGPT?" And I'm going, "Yeah, I've seen it, but not used it." He goes, "You need to use it." And go, "Well, why do I need to use it?" "You should ask something about Tebas." And I'm going, "You're nuts. You're out there. You're far out there." And he goes, "No." And he shows me a screenshot of what he asked, and it blew me away because I could have not phrased it any better of what ChatGPT did. And I'm thinking, man, this is like Total Recall, the movie, and RoboCop,
exactly,
all happening right in front of me.
Exactly. It's very interesting.
And it's if that's going to be driving and assisting technology and manufacturing, I think it can be exciting. Of course, it can be a little bit scary too, because we're already running into the situation that we don't have enough people to do this kind of work.
Right.
And now we're getting all of this stuff with AI and robots and all of this that'll do it.
Yeah, I know. We have to figure that out. Just remember, though, with that ChatGPT, from what I understand, it's not new. I mean, it's not getting new information, right? And I guess until it starts teaching itself, it perfects that. But it can only go so far, right? I mean, if I'm developing a story now and I haven't, it's not up there yet, then it can't scrape that information, right? For lack of a better way of describing it. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Like with a computer, though, it all depends on what you're feeding it.
Yes.
Is what it will tell you.
Yes, that is true.
This
garbage
can be
in, garbage out.
Exactly. So hopefully there's no garbage going in. Now, 3 years ago, we ran into this thing called COVID, which turned everybody's world upside down, including our mold makers.
Yes. But,
what did you see?
Yeah, but I saw many positive things. As crazy as that time was, and mind you, there's still an impact from it if you get into supply chain issues, but that need for critical medical equipment, right, and components that everybody was experiencing, it put a direct spotlight on the value of mold builders, especially our domestic ones. In the time of a crisis, did they step up to the plate? I mean, small ones, large mold builders, they did things with ventilators and whatever, respirator components and masks, test kits. They did things I don't even think they knew they were capable of. Now, mind you, it was all hands on deck with certain jobs, I guess, but they were able to turn weeks into days sometimes. And it was incredible to see not even them, but their suppliers, like their machine tool builders, their hot runner suppliers, their software suppliers, all of their vendors like you, coming together and helping them accomplish things that needed to get done. So I like to think that the mainstream world got a little bit of a glimpse at how these things are made, and that mold builders are a critical component of getting what your dad needs if he's in the hospital. It has to get made. You don't just hit a button and it appears. So that was incredible for them. But it taught them a lot, I think, about their process, like what they could do with the people they had and with the equipment they had at that time. And I think they amazed themselves. And then many came out changing the way they do things. And that includes, allowing some of them, their engineers could then work from home, like all that remoteness too. Because even with Gardner, even with my company, we're not manufacturing house. We can work remotely. That is something that we learned. You learn what jobs need to be in house all the time and what jobs don't. I forget which mold shop it was. They actually, through that crisis, ended up learning that they could hire engineers, which we are short on. They were focusing just on local guys, but because they learned that they could be a remote job, they were able to attract engineers in other states. So even something as simple as that they didn't think of prior to COVID opened their eyes to, this is okay. Why are we just limiting ourselves to our local area? We can get top talent in other states and globally even. So that was huge for mold making.
Yeah, I love that you turned this very negative, dark times that we had back then into positive, because you're right. A lot of my mold makers, a lot of the guys that I interact with, they were in the shop. They were producing molds during that time, nonstop, 24/7, trying to work on ventilators, other molds for the medical industry. And really, they were part of that entire hero group. They were not called out for being heroes, but they truly are, because they created life-saving equipment without even asking twice. And a lot of the mold shops they came through, and they did it in half the time. I was talking just not too long ago with a gentleman in Grand Rapids, and with his company, they did enormous things in a short amount of time. Extremely proud, and they should be, because they have really stepped up to the plate when it was needed.
And some of them weren't even in medical, diversified into medical, gained customers from that. So to double down on this, what was interesting about COVID, so they had stories to tell. So the MMT chat series that we started, it was because of COVID. We wanted to tell their stories. We couldn't go see them in person. So we weren't doing videos like that prior to COVID. I don't know that many trade media was at all. So that forced us to get comfortable, I think it was GoToMeeting at first. And I think my first one was Bill Berry of Dye Tech and Engineering. It was his story. Turned on his camera, turned on my camera. And since that day, if you go back to March 2020, every week I was pumping out an interview of shops, mold builders that were doing COVID stories. And then as we got further away from COVID, the videos improved. But I was like, you know what? There's more to talk about. We might as well continue doing these. And I get calls of shops just wanting to talk about the different things that they are working on, different innovations and strategies and projects they're working on that are not COVID related. So COVID helped Gardner and mold making get comfortable with digital content. So we changed our process too.
And not just you guys did. A lot of the mold shops leaped years ahead when it comes to technology, because on our side, with utilizing simulation equipment and figuring out before it goes to the machine all the things that are happening, because now the guy can write toolpaths from at home, send it to the machine, know exactly what's happening on the machine digitally. I had a guy that was making toolpaths up here in Michigan for a company in California, because they could simulate everything. They could analyze everything before it actually ran, and they could do it from their homes. And this digital world all of a sudden became so much bigger with all the different technologies that all of a sudden appeared out of nowhere almost.
Out of nowhere. Yeah, out of nowhere. They were always there, really. Like, everybody had Teams if you're on Microsoft, but nobody used it until COVID. It was like, what is this Teams thing? And now we can't live without Teams.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
kind of funny.
We're still doing it. Just a few minutes before this podcast, I was in a Teams presentation with a client in California, and that's how we do business nowadays. Before, it was always we set up a meeting. You had to drive there, fly there, do whatever. And I spent numerous days in airports and flights and cars and all of this. Now, we'll set up a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting or whatever meeting there is. There's so many platforms you can hardly count anymore, and you can connect across the globe, and it's fantastic.
Yep. You know what's interesting about that too, now that you brought up remote, the more global we've gotten, COVID also enabled, I think it actually launched the technology where mold shops can do remote validation. So they did a seed mold up in Rochester, New York. They learned that they had to continue business and work with customers, but they were able to use technology to do that virtually. So that's huge too, to save time and money when you can't. And they still do it.
Yep.
They use
Scanning
it now.
and measuring all online, and it's
Yep.
fantastic.
Yep.
Now you mentioned something very critical just a little bit earlier when we just started this segment with the pandemic and all this, and I want to kind of log on to that. Yes, the pandemic gave us a lot of positives in terms of technology, in terms of diversifying, that companies finally realized, you know what, I need to look at other industries, not maybe just automotive, and all of a sudden their world opened up. But at the same time, they ran their heads into it because all of a sudden they had resin issues because the supply chain wasn't there. Did you see from your perspective, because you talked to so many mold makers, has this improved or has this opened up another Pandora's box with other issues now?
So it's not as, from what I'm being told, it's not as bad as it was, but there are still, I don't want to name names, but there are still certain components, there are still certain products and equipment that the lead times are really long. So they are still definitely some machine tools, hot runners, heaters. I hear things are still a challenge, which are all necessary things for mold making. And they just have to deal. What can they do?
Yeah, and I deal a lot with the machine builders that are overseas and deal with them because of our relationship with many of them. And I almost feel that we here in the U.S., we're getting close to almost getting back to some normalcy. And I think the Europeans, they struggle also with the supply chain, I think a little bit maybe more than what we are doing with. And of course, if a machine tool builder sells a machine maybe over here, potentially there might still be some issues that we see over here from all of this. And it's incredible that we're still fighting this supply chain. And for whatever reason, I don't know, in your world, definitely in my world, the people are gone. I don't know if Elon Musk transported them up to Mars or wherever they ended up, but every shop that I'm walking in, we're hiring. We're looking for programmers. We're looking for machinists. We're looking for mold makers, for you name it.
You name it. Now, Michael, it's not just manufacturing. It's any kind of business nowadays. I agree with you. I don't know where they all are. Somebody recently told me about a study that came out. The numbers were astronomical of people that are just out of the workforce, just not doing anything for a variety of reasons. It's not because there are jobs. It's that they're choosing not to. I'm just not I'm not that type of person, so I can't get in that mindset. But within mold making, but you know what I mean? Like, I can't do nothing. What are you doing all day? Sitting on your couch? But for mold making specifically, I feel like that's been a challenge prior to COVID. We could go down a rabbit hole with this conversation with trade schools and trade programs. It's been such, I mean, when we started the magazine, the average age of a mold builder in 1998 was 56 years old. So now I will tell you, shops that I've been in, and with there being a concerted effort for people, the whole diversity inclusion, right? People are seeking out different types of people, maybe out of necessity, maybe because they want to diversify their workforce. I am seeing a lot more women, a lot more minorities. I mean, I am seeing, and a lot more younger people. Didn't you experience that at the AMBA convention? I am seeing shops of the men that I used to know. They're not coming, but they're sending their younger generation. As much as that makes me sad, because I want to see the people that I built personal relationships with, I'm overjoyed of these young people that are coming into the industry, and they're leaders. They're true leaders.
Oh, yeah.
So it's happening.
And it's exciting to see that.
Yes, we need it. We need it.
I mean, seeing the younger generation, and I can just speak from personal situations with my kids. I have 3 kids. 2 of them work for 2 OEMs. One is a local OEM here. The other one is another OEM based in the Kentucky area. But they are, and one, my daughter, she came to me when she was in high school and just graduating high school. And, Dad, what do you think I should do? And she's very good in engineering. She's very good in mathematics and all of this. And I said, have you ever looked around? And what kind of material do you see? And she goes, well, what do you mean? I said, do you see everywhere you look, there's some type of plastic or carbon fiber or any of this? And I said, would you have an interest in that? And lo and behold, for whatever reason, I turned her into this little plastic rubber expert that she went to Ferris State, got her degree there, graduated early by all means, the brainiac that she is, and then started working for a company in Louisville with molds, and now she works for a big time OEM and travels all over the place with them. And she's excited. The thing that with her, she came home all the time when she came home to us and we sat at dinner, and that's still one of the things that we do. She picks up a plastic piece, she looks around, and she tells me everything that this plastic thing does. Melting point, can it be recycled, all of those things. And it's exciting that a younger generation gets so excited about manufacturing. And I still believe that if we would have kept shop going in high school, if those things would still be available where kids could get the feeling of, I've accomplished something, I've built something, I've fixed this, I've done this, that maybe we would have had more of these young individuals learning a trade instead of maybe going to college and all that kind of stuff. But because I really think that we need those trades more than ever now than ever
absolutely.
before.
You should be very proud and very happy that you got one, that you turned one onto manufacturing and is getting somebody excited. You should be having her on this podcast and talking to her, because a woman, she's female and she's younger. You should be using her to promote this industry or just manufacturing in general. It's so exciting when you can talk about it and you turn them onto it, because what you said, if they're not exposed to it at all, which I feel like me growing up, my dad was an electrical engineer. He didn't really talk about what he did. This is a funny story though. It was, I forget what year it was. It was when I started mold making. My dad was working a tabletop for his company. He developed vacuum systems, engineered vacuum systems. I'm walking this trade show, this tabletop small trade show in the Philadelphia Convention Center or somewhere. I'm walking past a tabletop and my dad's there. He's looking at me. I'm looking at him. And I'm like, Dad, we got to talk more. Like, I did not know what you did. And you did not know what I do. That we're in somewhat of the same world, right? So that's a generation that really didn't come home and talk about work. So I wasn't really exposed to exactly what he was doing. So it's wonderful that you do talk about it, because if you have no exposure, you do not know what you're missing. Last week, I visited 2. One, a new trade school called Harmel Academy in the Grand Rapids area, and it's a young Catholic. It's called Harmel Academy, trade school for Catholic young men. Very impressive, but new, 3 years old, and they're starting to churn them out. And then I went to Sturgis High School. Oh, what they've done over there! So getting into just 2 in 1 week, it was positive to see the money pouring into well, and it's always the instructors pushing this. They have to fight to get what they want. But Sturgis is very impressive. They have, I think he said they're up to, did he say 75? I was blown away by the number of students that are interested in the program. A wonderful lab of machines and equipment. I think I actually put it out on social media. The parts that the kids are creating, talking to them, they are excited. So you wish more of them. We could put them on a mainstream platform to get them to share how fun and exciting that world is. Like you said, using your hands and your mind and making stuff. Ugh.
That's one of the things when I was in the shop beforehand, before I did this gig here at Tebbis. But before that, I did stuff with my hands, and it's extremely satisfying that when you later on walk along the street and you see this car going by, and I built the floor pan for this, or I did this, or I did that. It's extremely satisfying when you see the final product being used by the public, or just being in front of you when you've accomplished it. That feeling you can't take away. Now, in my position now, I can say, you know what? I have customers that provided a rocket that went to the moon or Mars, wherever it ended up.
With something that you helped them with, right? With this, exactly. It's all this team effort coming to the table and making all of this happen. That's what I like to say to the young ones too. Even if you try the trade, right? Say whatever, a semester, and you find out you don't want to work with your hands. I was telling some of them, but remember, a mold shop, for instance, is a business. There's HR, there's marketing, there's IT. So it's like any other company. You don't just because we're not going to force you into the trades, but everybody, I believe, should try it to see if they like it.
But you know what? Seeing at AMBA, the emerging leaders conferences and the emerging leaders that the AMBA already has, these young kids that are involved in the mold industry, there's hope. There really is hope that the mold industry can be revived again and can come back to before the glory of mold making. I agree.
And think about this too. That younger generation, not to knock on our seasoned generation, but I am noticing they're kind of what you talked about in your automation session with Franchino Mold. There's a mindset. Change is hard. So I'm noticing these younger ones coming in, if it's the right relationship with that owner or that older, more seasoned person, if they have the right relationship, they embrace technology and just different ways of doing things. They're open to really change the way a mold is built. And that gets me excited too. They can help that seasoned person transform their business and hence the industry, because it is hard to change.
Oh yeah, and that was one of the reasons why we asked these poll questions during our segment, to kind of find out what is their where are they standing with their average age and within a company? Because if they have a lot of younger kids in there, they're much more in tune with computers, with electronics, with having an open mind when they look at things, rather than saying, well, we've done it like this before, so we're going to do it again. And this, seeing that a lot more companies are doing it, and seeing also in that segment that companies are going out to high schools, do career fair at high schools to educate and help kids understand what the mold industry is, because I really do believe that the mold industry got a black eye over the many years prior to, because it was, like I said, dark and dungy and oily and a sweatshop and that kind of stuff, that we're still trying to dig ourselves out of that image. That because now when I'm walking into some of these shops, they're super clean. The machines are clean. The machines are white and blue, and it's phenomenal what these shops nowadays look like.
Well, yeah, and if you just look, the look of manufacturing itself, computers, automation, software, simulation, robotics, it's everything a kid would love. But they don't know that. They don't know it. We have to show it. I said, it's got to go. I wish there was this, I hate to say it, some type of big celebrity that the kids was somebody that could become like that Mike Rowe, because I feel like the only way to make an impact is these kids it has to be somebody that they follow, that embraces it, to introduce it. Otherwise, we're all preaching to the choir, Michael.
Well, you're almost
Right?
there with that celebrity status.
I wouldn't say that.
But no, I'm a big proponent of Mike Rowe and all what he does for the trade industry and trying to get kids to rethink, because not all kids are meant to go to college. As much as parents want them to go to college and be this doctor or lawyer or whatever, some of them really have the intuition of working with their hands and loving it. And that's something that, of course, we need to encourage more and more. And people like you and companies like you and your team and so many other more teams that are out there that are these influencers and these spokespeople for the mold industry. I congratulate all of you, because you guys are really bringing these young kids to the table so that the discussion can happen. So I really think there is a future for our young mold builders to come into this and be successful. So 25 years at MMT, tell me what that is like.
Oh, personally?
Well,
what do you
personally,
mean?
company, I mean, it must be exciting beyond belief, 25 years of this organization with the many team members that you guys have, and the ability to influence and give the message. And I mean, I can only imagine that it's very exciting.
So we had our trade show, the Plastics Technology Expo, and the theme of our booth, MoldMaking Technology's booth, was 25 years. So, and again, our March issue this year was all about it. So it's wonderful. I mean, I never set out to be on this brand for this long. Like when we started the company, it was called Communication Technologies back then. Our goal was to stay small, start magazines and sell them, So mold making was the first one we started. I was always on the road with the owners to sell them. And then we had 3 other publications that we started also that I was helping direct the editorial of. But one day, they sold mold making. They called me up and told me, but I was part of the package. So I never, it wasn't a happy day for me. It's a happy day now. Looking what has transpired. It was a wonderful move, but I'll never forget that moment, because I was like, what? So I never intended to be immersed in this world for 25 years. It's like, it's more than half my life. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to me. So that, and I'll never forget, and I wish I could remember the mold builder that said this to me, that mold making helped legitimize his career, because there wasn't a brand that called out. There's tons of manufacturing magazines, right? And things like that, and shows, but nothing that was mold making specific. So when he got that magazine, he was overjoyed, because it was like, oh yeah, that's me. That's my industry. So it's moving. And to watch how much I've seen people grow, when you get the emails or phone calls, or you meet somebody in person that tells you that something you wrote or something that you helped somebody else write, or that really impacted the way they do something in their shop, it's overwhelming. It really is
incredibly satisfying to get.
It's humbling. It's humbling
to see how these mold shops grew from reading about you, what you've done. Maybe you've influenced them because you had an advertisement in your magazine about cutters or about coolant or any of this, things that you don't think about what mold makers need, and that you've had an influence on all of this.
Yeah. Well, you know what, too? The founder wanted the magazine because there was never a place for mold makers to share. And back in the day, he always said, prior to 25 years, I would imagine, they never talked to each other. They were very private. They didn't want to share. It was very competitive. So that, now that I'm thinking about it, is another huge change, where not that mold making technology did this, but we were part of it, helping them know that it's okay to share. The industry will be better if you guys share your stories. Because if one shop thinks they're the only ones, we're alone in this challenge, it's only us this way. No, it's most of you. You guys can learn from each other. So I think we did help to show that it is an industry, it is a community, and you're not just this lonely shop, out somewhere in Michigan or Illinois on your own. There are people there that can identify with your challenges.
But this is exactly, if I can quote Troy Nix from AMBA, people make people better.
Yes.
and
Yes.
and
Exactly.
that's what you are involved in spreading that word and bringing them, these mold makers, to the table, having them talk to each other either through your MMT chats, and I've seen many of them, having that ability and that megaphone, so to speak, that you have that chance to see these companies grow, prosper, bringing them to the table so that they can share and help each other. Because at AMBA just recently, seeing that one mold shop helps out another mold shop, that person turns around and gives back. That's the American spirit.
Exactly. To a
And
T.
that's awesome. It's really awesome to see this. Now, because of the 25-year anniversary now, do you see a shift in the way how we market?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, yes, because we've went from being very print centric, right? Everybody, whether you're well, we don't even like saying magazine anymore because MMT is a brand. We're not just a magazine. We're a website. We're e-newsletters. We're videos. We're social media. And that's everybody. I mean, we used to do postcard decks back in the day, which sometimes I wish we could bring them back because it would be refreshing because our inboxes get flooded. But, it is, I think what's changed the most is everything's more personal, right? And I've learned that and probably in every industry, but I'll speak for mold making, it's relationship based. I always like to say it's a community. It's not so much an industry, it's a community. They deal with each other and their vendors and their supply chain. There's people behind it. So I think the marketing has become more personal, whether that's meeting people's teams, their faces, interviewing them themselves on their websites or social media. It's about telling stories, it seems, is what has changed for me, digital, socially.
And I think too that maybe we're leading a much faster life than we've had in the past. We don't have the time anymore to sit there and read a magazine because we're always on the go. So that's when YouTube, watching these videos, watching these video podcasts, audio podcasts, digital content, digital, so to speak, magazine, that's when this comes all in hand. And we all have this gizmo called a phone. It's not even a phone anymore. It's this mini computer nowadays
exactly.
that we have that you can do anything with.
And we like to say that we've learned to meet them wherever they are, whether that's print, digital, social, or in person. Gardner's getting better at understanding what our readers want, like who they are, what they want, when they want it, and how they want it. I mean, let's face it, that's where content's going, because there's no lack of content. But it can be overwhelming, the amount of content out there. So we have to get to know our audience better so we can deliver what they need when they want it, how they want it.
Exactly. Now, you went to PTXPO where you had your 25-year booth.
Yes.
It used to be called something else, right? This entire show used to be called Merimold.
Let me clear this up. There seems to be a little bit of confusion. Okay, so here we go. So mold making used to have a show called the MoldMaking Expo that started in 1999. I forget what year it was. I think it was 2010. We changed the name to Merimold because Gardner had a partnership. I don't know if you remember the Euromold show out in Frankfurt, Germany. It was a gigantic.
Yes, I do.
I think the trade show management company was Demat. I forget. And we partnered with them. So they had Russia Mold, Brazil Mold. We became Merimold. So we kind of entered that franchise, I guess. So then we were getting feed. So Merimold was every year. We started off in Columbus, which, make a side note, Merimold is happening. I'll repeat this at the end. Columbus, Ohio, June 5th and 6th, 2024. And it'll be our 25 years of the trade show. So Merimold has stayed the same every year, pretty much being in Novi or Chicago,
or the
Rosemont. But we've been to Columbus. We've been in Cleveland, I think is probably that's probably about it. Midwest area. So we were getting feedback at the events department from our audience that there was, with all the changes in trade shows, at one point, there were too many plastics shows, right? There were so many regional ones. But then I guess when NPE went to Florida, there was this hole right? In the Midwest, there are no plastic trade shows in the Midwest. So Gardner decided it's time, and they have a relationship with the Plastics Association. In non-NPE years will be the Plastics Technology Expo in Rosemont. In NPE years, Amerimold comes back. That is the plan. So Amerimold is not going away. So essentially, the mold making pavilion in PT Expo is Amerimold. But we're not calling it that. So PT Expo is a bigger plastic show. And I guess Amerimold is within that. And then when it's NPE, Amerimold's going to come back. It's going to be pulled out. And I think next year is in Columbus. That's the plan as of now, Michael.
You know, it's because I was under the impression, okay, Amerimold's gone. It's now part of this PTXBO because I've gone to so many Amerimold shows I can't even count anymore. And seeing that there is this thought behind it, and I think actually it's exciting to see that there's this shift between, because and one of the things that we always realized going to these shows, it's always the same vendors, it's always the same people that go there. But having that switch going between PTXBO and then Amerimold back and forth, you bring different clientele and different viewpoints into it. So it's not always the same people over and over and over again.
No, exactly. I think what I notice is Amerimold will, and I could be wrong, but this is what I'm thinking. What do I see? PT Expo gets, from my perspective, the mold building side. You're going to get the owners of shops or shops that are there looking for. Really to sell their business too, right? Like they want to sell their services there. They want to exhibit at PT Expo. Their customers are walking that show floor. The molding machines are there, which we do not have at Amerimold. Whereas Amerimold is pretty much for the mold builder, right? We have the machine technology, the cutting tools. That's the show for them to come to learn, right? And to seek out technology. Where in my opinion, PT Expo is more about them getting exposure for what they offer, their mold building services. That's kind of how I separate it. But we'll see. It's kind of exciting. We'll see how it grows, and where it takes us.
Do you see expos, these shows become, because I've seen over the many years that shows have been declining and several shows have been canceled and so forth. Do you see that wheel gets turned around so that there's more interest again? And is it because of the internet and social media and all this that people can get all this information directly online that this is happening? Or what do you see for the future there?
I think people need people, what you said before. And I think the face-to-face, I think you can get information online, but it's different when I'm at a show or a conference and I am a witness or part of conversations or real-time problem solving. Well, somebody goes up to a booth with a part and is working with that exhibitor. Can you help me with this? That's not going to really happen in the same way. Again, relationships at online. So I also believe at a certain point, Michael, where we just you can get digital overload, I guess. Like how much of that can everybody take? And I think about my mold builders. We are attacking them with content in just the mold building portion of their lives. That same guy goes home or at the shop, he's getting all other kinds of stuff, information. So I think it'll come back. I don't know how long it'll take, but I do think it'll come back.
I'm with you. I'd rather talk to a person in person about an issue or something that I'm running into than chatting it or emailing it or any of those things, because I can see how that person reacts. I can see the excitement of the other person and if they have a solution, and there's nothing better than talking to a person and having this people-to-people conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Even though there's a generation, right, that's come out of the womb not really needing that. They've come out having friendships online or through the social apps. So that aspect of it will be interesting, because I often wonder, do they feel they need that? And I hope they do. Like when you went to the AMBA, right? I see it from the emerging leaders that showed up last week and the ones that come to mold making, and my board members that are of 20 and under or 30 and under, they get it. But is that overall? Does the next generation crave face-to-face personal relationships? I guess we'll see.
I hope so. I
I
hope
hope
so.
so, too.
I really do think there is a huge future for mold making, for young kids to emerge in it, to see the excitement of all the new technology that we have in there. I mean, there's so much technology in molds. And so much in the woodworks right now, because I see some of the development stuff. I'm actually heading over to Germany on Saturday to the Tebbis's open house, where we show off all the new technology and the new stuff that's happening that we're bringing over here to the U.S. And seeing a lot of this development that we alone came out with, that's super exciting. And I know our customers are excited to see all of this, and the future kids, when they can see all this technology, if it's scanning, if it is whatever there is for mold building, it's got to be extremely exciting for them.
It never stops. I mean, if you think about it, parts are only going to get more complex, more precise, so, and for me, that means more complex, more precise mold designs, machining, maintenance, repair. So it just feeds on itself. So I agree with you. Like it's never going to stop. That is what makes manufacturing exciting. Because if you stop, you're going to go out of business.
Yeah. So, Christina, I got to understand this. There probably are people out there, or listeners out there, that probably have never heard of you. They've never heard of the organization that you work for. Where would they have to go in order to learn more about mold making and technology and all this? Where do they have to go?
Okay, this is easy. MoldMakingTechnology.com has everything. And from there, you can you can subscribe to the magazine. You can link to our mold making conference coming up at the end of August in Minneapolis, August 29th and 30th. PT Expo, Mirror Mold you can link to, all of our social channels. All of our webinars and chats. MoldMakingTechnology.com has everything. And I would say
this is where you can interact with the people.
Yep.
And people with people can do better things.
Yep.
And this is where you can find all of this stuff.
That's it.
Christina,
Perfect.
I could talk to you for hours,
I know.
it seems like. And,
yes.
and probably the hook is already outside my door for getting me off the waves here. But, it has been extremely exciting talking to you, and hopefully the listeners are agreeing with that. And you know what? Mold making industry is exciting. And you are an incredible part in that, and one of the very important wheels for the mold making industry. So thank you for being this voice for the mold makers, and for seeing mold shops through their hard times and getting them out of the hard times into good times again. So thank you for all for what you do.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for those kind words. Thank you for inviting me. And I just have to say, mold making matters.
Yes. Thank you. Well, guys, you heard it here first. Mold making is exciting. It does matter. And people make people better. These are all the things that you need to know in today's world. And if you believe that, and if you listen to this segment here, send us some comments back. Send it to marketing@tebbisusa.com, marketing@tebbisusa.com. Send us your thoughts for maybe future episodes. Give us your topics. We're always looking for more exciting things. If there's a tool, a gadget, or a widget that is exciting in your mold industry, let us know. We'd love to talk about it. We love to tell other mold shops of your success and what you have been doing. So give us some feedback, give us some ideas. We always are welcoming it over here at Tebbis. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Good luck to all of you out there, and keep producing. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining this episode of All Access. Please leave a comment or review with your feedback or what you'd like to hear in future episodes. To learn more about manufacturing technology solutions and Tebbis's capabilities, visit our website at Tebbis. That's TEBIS.com.